And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to the PEO Speedwagon podcast. I am not your host, Rick Johnson. I am Ryan Shapiro, president, founder of PEOMG, but I am sitting in the host chair, which is a very uncomfortable spot for me. But it's also very exciting because today Rick is not here because we have a very special guest. Another Rick Shapiro, my father. And Rick is joining us today because today is a very special day. It's his 70th birthday. So first off, happy birthday, Dad.
Thank you, Ryan.
So the idea of doing this kind of came together somewhat serendipitously because we're doing a podcast record today. It's your 70th birthday. But also because, your journey through life and small business, entrepreneurship, parenting just has a lot of really incredible parallels that I feel like our listeners might learn a tremendous amount from, because I've learned a tremendous amount from you over my life. So in some way, every piece of good and bad information I impart has in some way come from you. Sorry
about those.
Yeah. You can choose to decide which is which, but just tell people. I mean, really, just tell people a little bit of your journey and your life, and maybe what does the first 70 years look like?
Well, very challenging. I would say raising 5 kids in St. Louis, thinking about getting them college educated and independent was an objective of their mom and I, and kind of proud to say when we look back, we were successful in reaching those goals. Every one of them is productive and has nice families and has blessed me with 15 grandchildren in town. And right off the bat, my nickname became Poor Pawpaw, because they know I can't say no very often. But that's been a wonderful part of my life. And I've always lived in St. Louis and grew a business from ground zero in St. Louis with a partner after being with IBM for a short number of years. So took on quite an entrepreneurial risk, which everybody is, scared to death to do. But it's been quite a journey. What piece of it would you like to talk about?
It's very well structured. The answer, let's dive into a little bit of that, right? So we're going to touch a bunch of different things, but you kind of clicked into the entrepreneurship and starting a business. What was it that felt right to do that, and why did you do it, and what did you start?
Yeah, for me, it really started with my parents. Had a business out of the house. Watched my mom work every day of a week in a dog grooming business. Saw my dad leave for work 6 days a week, sometimes till 9 o'clock at night in retail business. So business in our family was always pretty much front and center. Watching someone else make money, for whatever reason, just kind of fit my makeup. And I started a small business buying and selling Volkswagens. And most people are like going, how do you make money at that? Well, I made a lot of money at it. And I realized that if you take the risk and learn enough about a particular business, you can make profits and can do well. And that kind of really gave me a business experience that was second to none. I got out, got my name out, got people to call me from dealerships to buy cars at great clearance prices, and I'd do what I needed to do to dress them up and make them look good and drive well, and did well. I made a lot of money as a fairly young teenager. So that whole entrepreneurial spirit kind of got in my blood, and it's really why I left IBM, which was a great job in sales, but did it after 3 years because I knew I wasn't going to make the money I could make if I really went out on my own. So
what did you start? Because when I do tell people what you the business you owned,
Yeah.
and kind of what it transformed into. People find it very intriguing because it's not anything anybody thinks about any longer.
Yeah. IBM had I know it's hard to believe, but they would have a 18 to 24 week delivery for an IBM typewriter. And I was in that division that sold that type of products, typewriters, copiers, things like that, office products. So they waited that long to get their one typewriter, and IBM would step in and give them a rental unit. And we felt like, well, we can buy typewriters, rent them out for a little bit less, and compete with them. Unfortunately, we kind of started that business, and they didn't like that we were running it. So that kind of launched us out as true entrepreneurs, without a job to pay the bills. So really, success or failure was certainly not an option. But we worked hard, stuck our morning, noon, and night, investing in equipment, renting it out, and we got it to the point where we had 3 offices in the United States with over 1,000 typewriters on rent. So we had cash flow that afforded us to buy the next level of technology and the next level of technology. And eventually, after 10 or so years, a computer was invented. So then it naturally took us into buying and renting that type of equipment. So we ended up building out 8 offices across the country.
Yep.
And had quite an operation, 140 employees. So I wore every hat that there was to wear. Master of none, but, we had a successful run for almost 25 years.
Yeah. It was, it's fascinating in the sense that, one, just getting to witness you do that and obviously on the sideline as a kid, really not understanding what it takes to build a business. And then flash forward to today, doing it myself in a very different space. But we got to be around it. We got to be around it in some funny ways. So every day on the way to work, my dad would drive us to school in our blue minivan. And you had one of those, the car phones, the real ones with the stalk and the phone and everything. And I always remember probably your VP of sales or national sales director, a guy named Rodney, who would call in, put you on speaker, or you'd put him on speaker. And then he would subsequently start MFing every situation. And every day you were like, damn it, Rodney, my kids are in the car. You never thought to just take it off speaker, but, that was always something that was very present in our household was, the fact that the business was a part of our family to a degree. Obviously, you drove it all. So how did you balance that? Because I think that is a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs, is balancing work life when you're an entrepreneur and you are kind of the epicenter of that business, and obviously being home with kids because you were always there for us.
I had a great wife.
She's still alive.
Yes, she is. Fairly. No. Had I not had a strong partner in life to take care of the family, she understood what the business and the offices that we opened up and the travel and everything about it, the finances, that when I told her I had to work from 7 to 7, you know what? She just, we just went for it. So she took care of the home, kept the boys out of jail, and it pretty much, it worked great. But huge effort, a lot of risk, a lot of stress, but it all goes with every entrepreneur.
What was the thing that, I guess, when you were starting the business, what was the most terrifying part? What were you most worried about?
Well, it was probably having Ryan in the first week that we were asked to leave without health insurance. That was pretty stressful because my wife, I didn't realize how many teeth she had. So I would say the way we began, we were 2 cats in the corner. So, we just went at it and pick and shovel, just kept putting more and more equipment out until, one of us could take a paycheck, and then the other take a paycheck, and just did it the old fashioned way. We really, we knew we would be successful. It was just taking time to build that pyramid and get the revenues up and such.
Yeah.
But that was terrifying, certainly. every level of owning a business, bringing employees on board, making sure you have a benefit package that's competitive, required you to wear a new hat every month of some sort, which I don't say it terrified you, but it was extremely stressful. You didn't want to make mistakes. You didn't want, you wanted your employees to feel, that you had their interest and their family's interest at heart. And, you just worked hard. You made mistakes and you fixed them, and you were always sincere and you're always transparent, because, employees aren't BS'd very often,
Yeah, I think that's powerful because not only now with my own experience, but I also think just about that very lonely, even when you have a great partner and mom and you have a great business model that you believe in and you believe it will be successful. So as much as I put into it, I'm going to get something out of it. But the owner position is a very lonely spot, right?
Oh, very much so.
You don't always have that feedback loop, and it's also all the pressure is on you. You describe taking care of people and their families.
Yeah, not only do you have to make sure your family believes in you and your commitment, you got to convince business partners, you got to convince banks to lend you money for this idea. And for the most part, you look back and you feel very fortunate that those parts and pieces did come together. But I can't tell you that one of the best days, running that business was selling it. But I'm just kidding. We had some tremendous victories, and there were some rough times too. It's business.
If you look back on your time in the business and how you managed it from any aspect, the work-life balance, the taking care of employees, what are a few things that you jump out as these are the things I'm probably most proud of from my time as an entrepreneur?
You kind of nailed it. I was most proud of the fact that I could run 3 separate companies, the way we were organized with partners in different parts of the country, and own commercial real estate, and then have a fabulous family that all wanted to participate in sports and be coached and be a lot of practice time. I was able to shut it off at that moment that I came home. My wife, I'd walk in the door, she goes, red light, green light. And I'm still in a red light mode. She'd say, all right, well, let me know when you're human. And once that switch, got the ball gloves out and the bats, and that was it. The business was over that day. And then I just jumped back into it the next day. But for whatever reason, I felt as though I wanted to not work when I got home. So that meant, 5 days a week I would work, and I'd work evenings when the kids go to bed. But come that morning, I'm taking them to school, and come that afternoon, we're picking them up. We're going to practice where I could coach that team. So it was something I look back at, and very happy I wasn't one-sided. I was very much balanced between the two. And same thing with vacations. When I took a vacation, I was in touch, but I had good people underneath me that knew that I needed a vacation. So that became the priority.
Yeah. Yeah. If someone asked me with the work that you did in owning a business, and even now, thinking about it relative to my own situation, I try to carry forward some of the things that I saw. I don't think I'm executing upon them as well as you did, because I would say if someone asked me to reflect back and was your dad present at all times, inside, once you got home from school and he got home from work, and the answer would always be yes. I think your superpower that I've talked about to a lot of people is your undying energy. Even at 70 years old, I think you kind of run circles around most people that are half your age in terms of energy of picking up grandkids and doing all these things that are for other people. And I saw that as a kid. I saw that as I can't reflect back on a time where I'm like, we weren't the priority. But I also knew you were driving this, fairly sizable and successful business. So I mean, is that kind of the lessons learned from maybe you mentioned your mom, your dad, their time away? How did that become a priority for you?
That's a good question. I I believe everybody, certainly is influenced by the way they were raised. And even though my dad worked hard during the week, Sunday was the day that I buddied up with him, and whatever projects we had, we did together. So I just happened to be at the right age and able to help him, and I had the interest level and understanding what we were trying to accomplish, and he did just about everything around the house. So that certainly played a role in developing where my priorities were, and it was work very hard and play very hard, and that's why I feel like our family has raised their kids much with the same similar priorities.
Yeah. So let's step away from that, because having priorities and executing upon them and like setting a tone, I view as kind of a subset of, or their behaviors around leadership, right? So when you're running a business, you and I've spent many, many conversations over the years about concepts of leadership. So big question is, what is your philosophy? Like, how do you view leadership? How does it evolve from business into life?
For my company, I had an older business partner who was about 10 years older than I was. So a lot of the negotiation with vendors, relationships with the clients, running the sales management, I was a salesperson, so I pretty much ran the sales in the company along with a lot of other things, insurance, banking, working with the CFO. But when it came to the employees, I made sure my employees understood how much I valued them. I mean, it was to that point we really had some fun rituals, as though certificates were handed out at the end of every month about who accomplished what, and everyone had a name attached to it. By might have been like a Superman, or it might have been a one superhero in one fashion from a service standpoint. Our business was a service. We weren't selling a product. So that meant everything about what we offered was to ensure that the client had a good experience working with our company. And that also helped then with our partnership relations, because they knew we were more of an industry leader than a follower. And that really paid great benefits to our company. I did start on for the necessity of needing partnerships to manage large contracts of renting equipment out across the country. I needed to corral the right players and make them believe in me that they can come in partnership with us without being a part of our corporation and be treated fairly. And started a national association of computer rental, technology rental companies that was so broken up and competitive with each other. I brought them together under an association, and it really, really gave the entire industry a new life. So if there would be a real proud accomplishment, second to my family, it would have been that. For business reasons, I needed partners, but I believe I got them to believe in me, and it worked out. Now it's an international association, and it's neat being the founder of that. But it's your people believing in you, and you following through, and you setting and leading by example, all day, every day, and making sure that they know that I have their interest at heart. And if there's a person in the barrel that's rotten, then I set the right example, and that person is replaced. And that gives value to everybody there. Nobody is taken for granted. So,
yeah, I mean, it strikes me as, you set the tone, you're consistent, you're transparent, but what's a very visible in that transparency is that you care. Right?
Sure, very much so.
Yeah, and it was fun to be able to see that. I mean, one of the things, there's a lot of things we're very similar on. One thing that we're not as similar on is you are universally loved by everybody who meets you for the most part. Not that people don't care for me as much, but they just not nearly as much as they do for you. And I remember that in those pool parties or company picnics we used to have at your partners and then later at our house, and like how everybody just revered you. And it was really it wasn't just because you were good at your work. It was because you were a great leader and they felt very cared for. So that's what you did. Where did you develop the instincts for that kind of level of care? Because we, fortunately or unfortunately, were able to help some people with this stuff. That's the fortunate. But the unfortunate nature of it is that people aren't wired that way to care about their people first initially. So where did your instincts come from?
There's no doubt in my mind that I learned that skill being with my father. And I know that's a gift, and that's not, other people may not be as fortunate. But I watched how he shook people's hands and how he made them feel that he cared about them and got to know them because he himself at heart was a salesperson. Mm. And I think that's a real attribute when you're a salesperson, is you want to convince somebody and influence someone to use your service. You want to do it genuinely, and you do that by asking questions and developing information about them that you can ask them about and find out what it is that important in their life. So it's kind of like relating to human beings. Mm-hmm. And my dad was friends with everybody where he went, and I think that really just kind of it must have worked with my DNA. Mm-hmm. Because I really am not interested in selling somebody something until after I really know them and we have made connections. Mm-hmm. To where they're like, this is just an ordinary guy. I mean, he's sincere, and yes, he believes in what he's selling, but it's not dry.
Right.
It's warm.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Sid, your dad, mm-hmm. was loved by everybody. You were loved by everybody. I don't know where it went wrong with me. No, I'm just kidding. So so in our family, you are a glowing extrovert. So is Mom. I am what I would describe as a recovering introvert. I'm certainly much more introverted, but I'm trying to navigate through that. That energy, where it shows up all the time now that I see it, is for your large number of grandkids. And so talk about that phase of life now, because you've had all these different journeys, and now you're in a new one, and it's very, it seems like it's energizing for you.
Oh, very much so. It's full circle, though. It started that way, and I'm fortunate enough to have 15 crazy people, little people that want to have fun, and I'm all about that. So, I know I have the highest priority in the time that I spend with them. And I know a lot of grandparents do and some don't, But for myself and Sherry, that's where we find our joy. And hopefully some of this openness, mm-hmm. and I hear some of them make comments like, my goodness, you really asked the waitress a lot of questions, And I go, well, it's free French fries, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I just said, that's what I am. I said, these are human beings. These are people. Nothing will motivate them to want to be with you than you showing them you care about them. And it's not complicated. It's just sometimes I think people miss that. They go right to the message, right to the advantage, right to the service, whatever it is, the product they want to sell them. And that's dry. And it's just like robotic. So that's what I feel I get to do now with my grandchildren. I have a certain amount of time on this earth with them, and even less that they're going to listen to me. And I take advantage of that and want them to be open and sincere to people, because what industry wouldn't that be an asset to?
Right. Yeah.
So especially when you're in sales and you're front facing the company and trying to create loyalty is with good old-fashioned, authentic conversations and caring about people. I don't know if that's ever going to change. AI might tell you to say it this way. I really hope people will say it because they're talking to humans and not robots, you know?
Yeah. And it's interesting because, and I've said this probably on other episodes of the podcast, the more high tech we get, the more people long for high touch, right? And that comes in the form of connection and genuine interest in one another. And that is something I see you execute on. It's not execute, you just do it. It's not a strategy for you. It's just kind of who you are.
Yeah. And I think what's important for everybody today is they never lose. You should never substitute texting emotions back to people. Oh, I really appreciate the meeting. I thought we were on the same page with this, that, and the other. Look forward to talking to you again. Versus picking up the phone and saying, hey, it was a great meeting. What'd you think? I mean, completely different. One's convenient, one's dry, one's impersonal to an extent. And the other one is a human being that you always ought to stay in touch with. So it's got to be a complement of both.
Yeah. It's well said, because I've seen that executed upon poorly, not to use that word again, but in sales and work and even in life, because of, texting it's an efficient way. You can get a message out, you can get it into somebody as quickly as possible, but tone, context, care is lost.
Right.
And we see this in our processes, and these aren't things you had to necessarily deal with, but sometimes the easiest thing is just picking up the phone. But it seems so far removed from the idea of what is efficient or what is easy, and for customers or just your employees or people, like just picking up the phone and talking to somebody can be so meaningful. And I think we have a tendency to shy away from that.
Yeah, I think it's a differentiator. I think it's forward thinking is going to be the people that are going to offer your service and instill in you the confidence that you're the right choice after they've made the wrong choices, which everybody does. That this time it's there's someone behind it making a promise. It isn't just, this is the way I'm presenting it, and that's how I should earn your trust. So when we quit talking, we're all robots. It's one thing, but we're not.
So flipping back to lessons learned, what else? Like if you had a chance to go back and tell young Rick, do these things differently, or not do things differently, what advice would you give young Rick? Maybe that's just a better way to ask.
For me, it's pretty much what I've shared with you, in this podcast, and that is to stay involved as a human being because you're dealing with human beings. I heard that when I was, first year in sales school, and I think I've taken that maybe another level higher. And I think another thing is be consultative. Be objective. People love truth. They do not like BS. They can see that now a mile away. And when you're not the right fix, make a recommendation to them. Gain credibility all the time. You want to gain credibility even when you don't win the business. Because if something changes and you get a better source or a better idea that does fit them, they'll invite you back. Because you said, hey, here's what the direction I think you need to go in. So I guess we're back to some very basic things, and that's honesty, being forthright, being objective, is just the human part that I pray to God that we don't lose. Otherwise, we'll all be a commodity of one sort or another.
All right, so it's 70th birthday. What have you done so far to celebrate?
I had a great day. I got up, picked up two
That's
of my...
a good start.
Pardon me?
Getting out of bed.
Yeah, got up and headed out the door as early as I could with two of my grandkids to go to the zoo. And it was a perfect choice and a perfect day, and we had a blast. We saw more animals because I guess they're starting to come out with the warm, the sun. But I ran them around that zoo till they started fighting each other. So I knew it was time to go home. And then pretty much just got cleaned up to to be in my first podcast.
There you go. First podcast, age 70.
First season, one of many.
Yeah, that's right. You want to show up every decade. Well, I think it's a great place to kind of wrap this thing up. This is a very cool thing. There's been many times, and I remember you did this with Mom's dad. You sat down and kind of recorded stories and thoughts, and that he had towards the end of his life, which that's not where you are, but
it's not too late.
It's not, but it's a good thing we got it on paper.
Yes, please use this.
But I thought that, yeah, exactly. This will be a preamble to the eulogy.
Mm-hmm.
When this idea came up of doing this, you have had an enormous influence on this business and even the way that we conduct this podcast, because it's kind of come through me and this opportunity on a very special day in your life to be able to kind of celebrate not only you and the day itself, but like the things that have led you to be the person you are is a really special honor. And it's, I think, people will learn a lot from what you've had the opportunity to share.
Well, thank you, son. You've been a great, great son.
Thank you. Thanks, Pop. All right. Well, that's it. So 70th birthday, Rick Shapiro. Congratulations. Many, many more to come, and perhaps some more future podcast appearances. Thank you for joining the PEO Speedwagon. We'll get the train back on the tracks next episode with Rick Johnson, our host, and he will do an excellent job and clean up some of this mess. But I appreciate everybody checking this out, and come download and listen wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks.